Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Penna. I'm here today to talk a little bit more about additive manufacturing and 3D printing. And today I'm very happy to have Greg Waters with me. He's the founder and director of Additae Global, and that's in Manchester, England. Additae helps the world's most technologically progressive companies find the top talent on the planet to design and implement their advanced and digital manufacturing strategies. So, Greg, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro. That was impressive. Thank you.
Hey, give it a shot, man. It's a lot of words. It's not that many actually, but yeah, glad to have you here.
It's read out very often. It's nice to kind of hear somebody else say it out loud,
Yeah. So, my gosh, I know that you do advanced. You're one of the advanced recruiters out there for people in the higher end positions of what's going on in 3D printing and additive manufacturing. You've been doing it for a long time and made a career out of it, huh?
I did. Yeah. I did.
Yeah.
So it's been 5 years now. The last 7 months have been a challenge, but we've been going at it for pretty much 5 years. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your perspective on what's been going on. Obviously we're all dealing with the pandemic, and it's been at it for a while, and now we're kind of seeing things open up, but also people are going through different phases of the upcoming flu season coming up, and trying to come up with different procedures and ways to mitigate that risk. And also here in the U.S., we have an election coming up, a big one. So there's a lot of people are just kind of wanting to see what happens, and as things go along, it's made the job market very interesting. But there seems to be a lot of opportunities out there, and I know that companies are kind of shifting around in how they actually deal with their employees, especially since there's the work from home situation. There's been a lot of people that are able to now, or are looking to hire around in different places instead of just being in the locality, which is really cool. But also it's a different challenge for companies and just to communicate and to feel secure. So how have you seen things on with the job market and the way things have been going in the last 6 or 7 months? I know it's been different for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, this could be the whole interview on this question.
Yeah.
Tell you some stories, but no, I mean, put it this way, from a personal perspective, just the whole work from home thing, I've sort of been doing it myself since we set up Additae. So, much as I'm usually, out of the house, we don't necessarily have a fixed office because no need for it really. But, I think, a lot of people now making that transition, it's hard for some people. For some people, it's just a pretty natural kind of progression. If you can do the work on a computer, then you can do it in your house rather than doing it in an office a lot of times. I think in terms of how the industry's been, we've obviously had lots of conversations over the last 7 months with, candidates that have been either made redundant or candidates that are nervous about being made redundant, or people that have friends that, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
In the US and in the UK and in Europe, all over, to be honest. From our side, if I wind it back to March, everything really just kind of, for a while, it just kind of stopped there. Maybe March, April, May time. I'm sure you've obviously seen it. For a while, I didn't really know the best thing to do. To be fair, our kids were off school, the sun was out. So for a while, I just kind of thought, you try and still have the same conversations with companies, but realistically, you got to show some empathy. And I think where companies were making all those redundancies, and you're trying to talk to people, and it just didn't seem appropriate to be talking to people about adding people to their workforce and talking to people about potentially paying a fee to, it just didn't seem right. So we took the view to say, well, look, we're just going to kind of stop our normal service for sort of 2 or 3 months till it all starts to get to a point where we know what's happening, because at the start of it, we were just nobody. From a company perspective, we sort of threw it out there, and we could see all the stuff going on with all the kind of ventilator challenges and all the 3D printing companies working, trying to produce PPE, items of PPE. So we just said, look, we threw it out to the community and said that anything that we can do, just use our network, or if you need us to make connections or what have you. We just tried to do whatever we could do to help the industry during that time, because there was, we just felt like there was nothing else that we could do that was actually anything close to what we were actually supposed to be doing on the recruitment side. So we did that, and that kind of got some or we were able to help quite a few people make connections and what have you. So that was great. Since then, I mean, it varies so wildly. I mean, we've done some work. We've had some retained assignments actually. I mean, I didn't think we'd see any of those this side of Christmas, to be honest. But we were fortunate enough to pick up a couple of those. But at the same point, I mean, the traffic that we've had from a candidate perspective is just, I mean, unheralded. It's trying to help as many people as you can, and of course, when you have a good network of candidates, of course, when they start to come onto the job market, everybody gets in contact, and trying to do the best thing you can for all those people is tricky, because what the AM market's like. You generally don't have that many people, with their head above the parapet looking for a new job. It doesn't usually go like that. So it's been tricky. But at the same point, there is some movement. We do see it out there. So, I think you're right. The winter is going to be complicated. But there are signs out there that there is some movement in the industry. So we're trying to, remain optimistic and trying to help as many people as we can, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know there's, from everything that's been going on, it just seems like, of course, 3D printing additive manufacturing has had a better moment right now as far as manufacturing is concerned. So the companies out there that are doing things, that I'm starting to see them open up and to actually start to post a lot more jobs, and things seem to be growing instead of shrinking. I know there is some shrinking going on because companies have to adjust to their own budgets and things that are happening to kind of, make it through this difficult time. So that's understandable, but there is a lot of growth, and that's an exciting time right now, at least to see what's going to happen on their side. Some great talent's going to end up at some great places. So we'll see. Sure. We'll see what happens from there. I know, everything that you've been doing prior to, you've been, how long have you been at Additae Global now?
We set up about 2017. So we're in our 4th year now.
So what in general, what propelled you to be, attracted to actually doing recruiting?
Oh, wow. Well, now we're going back. That's 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm old now. Put it this way. I had some friends in recruitment. I was working in leasing, doing sort of company cars, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I kind of always felt like I'd make a good fit in recruitment. I was always really comfortable on the people side, and I just felt like, working with candidates, working with clients, it was all kind of people. Whereas obviously the car side was, a person and a vehicle. Whereas the kind of whole the thing about the people on both sides thing really attracted me to recruitment. So 15 years ago I got into it. I kind of started in industrial recruitment, sort of putting people into warehouses, doing picking and packing, really kind of cutting your teeth on the factory floor. Really, it was quite a good ground actually for kind of where I got to now. But when you sort of start there, it teaches you a lot of the things about how to get out at 6 a.m. and trudge around warehouses and physically knocking on doors. It was a really good learning curve for me, to be honest. So I did that for sort of 3 or 4 years, and then kind of sort of moved into engineering recruitment and into manufacturing recruitment. And then at my previous company, like I said, I was recruiting for sort of more traditional manufacturing. And then just so happened that one of our clients was recruiting for was it an additive manufacturing team leader or something to that effect. And I remember seeing the job title, and I was a bit like, I don't even know what that is, quite frankly. You could argue that's kind of, I get that way now, even, to be honest, with some of the jobs that we see. But
sure.
Anyway, one of those
interesting titles. Yeah.
Well, they like to be creative. But so it was very much starting from the start and starting from ground up, and I had no prior knowledge whatsoever. I literally didn't know what that term meant. So did a bit of research. Obviously, spoke to the client, got their take on it. They were doing some additive and advanced manufacturing in the UK and in Australia. And then, I managed to get that role filled. And then I kind of was at this crossroads, really. I was thinking, well, that was a lot more interesting than a lot of the stuff I've been working on. And I kind of thought, well, I've got a few of these candidates here that kind of didn't get that job. So I could either do some work with them, or I could go back to, you know, the more traditional stuff. So that was kind of a bit of a no-brainer, really. And then, I just put some feelers out and started making calls around the UK and a bit, you know, trying to build a bit of a network, really.
Yeah.
And then, we got another piece of work with the MTC.
Okay.
In the UK, and then it kind of all went from there, really. And then I sort of managed to stumble across some people that, you know, helped me understand the industry, understand how it all works. Possibly more importantly, understand how it doesn't work.
Yeah, that is.
You know, some really, really helpful individuals that I never expected to get that kind of help. Just kind of going in there saying, "Look, I haven't got a clue what this is. Can you, you know, have you got some time to just explain this and da da da?" And then, some of those people were kind enough to take the time to meet and sit down and explain things, and it kind of went from there, really. And that was probably, when was that, sort of end of 2015, and then got to sort of 2017, and you know, decided to take the plunge and kind of go out on my own, really, and here we are. It's been a bit of a journey, to say the least.
That's a great journey. I mean, I know that the last 5 years have been very action packed for additive manufacturing. I mean, there's been so much change, and it's kind of progressed into the mainstream, especially recently. But it's wow, what a time to be part of that. And I could see how that would be attractive as something shiny and new, but also very interesting on the manufacturing forefront, as far as something, you know, pushing things forward in a different way. So it's an instant attraction, I'm sure, when you see something like that. It doesn't come along too often. So
no, it doesn't. Shiny new toy would be a good way to describe it, actually. That's exactly how I saw it when I came across it. Just, you know, something that was really new. I mean, every day I'm still the same now. You know, I always find yourself learning something every day in additive. So that's really attractive.
Yeah, so you brought something up there, you know, when you're learning something new every day, and I noticed that you did take some Purdue University courses on additive manufacturing. How was that? That looks interesting.
I mean, put it this way, you know, I'm not an engineer, and I got pretty close with the team there at the Barnes Group. So John and Alison, when she was with them back in sort of, when was that, 2018, Laura. So we'd met up. In fact, we co-authored some articles which I have on my website, just on there. So, you know, we've done a decent amount of work together. But so we were all communicating quite regularly back in 2018, and then they were rolling out the course, and I get this a lot, this guinea pig thing. They wanted a non-engineer to essentially be a guinea pig. For, you know, because I think everybody else that was kind of on the course at the time was an engineer, but they wanted somebody to do it. And I thought, well, you know, can't be that hard. And then we started it, and you know, and this is the point about you know, this is where it's so helpful to have friends. I mean, have friends in the industry, because you know, you think you know a bit about it, and then you get put on a university course, and you know, Purdue is a pretty well respected university. It's not just you know, so the course was pretty deep, obviously with a huge engineering focus, and then the other part was kind of financial and management. You know, I'm a recruiter essentially, and you know, once
were you cheating off of other people's papers? Is that what you're telling us? Just kidding.
I spoke to a lot of people.
A lot of help. Let me see what you got over there. Hey, what'd you get for this one over here?
Well, put it this way. The way I see it is collaboration is hugely important in this industry. Everybody talks about it. And the way I saw it was that, you know, if I'm gonna do this thing, I could stare at it for 6 weeks. Or I could, you know, enter into the spirit of collaboration and do it that way. So that was one of the techniques that I used to get it done. I mean, put it this way, bearing in mind I was trying to do my work at the same time, and we just had our second daughter had just arrived, so I'm trying to manage all that. And then all of a sudden, I've agreed to this university. Yeah, it was one of those where I kind of thought, oh man, I really didn't think through my kind of time management, because I kind of took it on. It was kind of over Christmas 2018.
Oh, okay.
Just into January 2019. So it was a little bit quiet, and then we had sort of 3 or 4 projects sort of drop into February, and I was a bit like, oh my gosh. So all this time that I thought I had on my hands just, evaporated, and yeah, it was. But it was one of those where I think actually that was time really well spent, because actually it made me think about the industry in a lot of ways that I hadn't thought about it before, and it kind of allowed me to have conversations with clients and candidates now that I'd never really considered previously. So yeah, it was really, really valuable. So yeah, I'm kind of grateful that they taught me into doing it, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congrats for getting through that. That's got to be a big challenge for somebody who's not who's on the other side of the wall there. It's a lot. That's really cool though. Obviously, you have a good in-depth knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes now, and how to dig in, and what's actually happening with the people who are actually taking these jobs out there. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's a hands-on experience you really you can't replace any other way. So good job.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool. I know that, we're talking a little bit about the job market reality in 2020. And, I know there's a lot of things that you do with people placement issues and opportunities. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we'll put it this way. I think, everyone knows what's going on. So we took the view that you can't just operate in the same way that you have done for the last 5 years. I mean, some of it was obviously driven on excitement, you could call it hype. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of money being invested into the industry, so companies had a lot of money to hire, and obviously as a recruiter, that's great news. Obviously that's changed over the last sort of 7 months. So we've really had to. You always do. You have to adapt to what the industry is showing you. You can't just say, well, we want to do this, and because the industry will just basically reject it. So we've looked at ways in which we can really start to kind of add value to companies during this sort of complicated time. And I think, looking at interim solutions is a solution that companies have responded really well to. And certainly the last sort of 4 or 5 months, I think, where you've got all these people on the market who usually wouldn't be, you have this opportunity as a business to bring in expertise without necessarily the long-term commitment of a full-time contract, but it's expertise that usually you wouldn't be able to get to, really, because they're working somewhere else. And I think we've seen a really solid take up on in that kind of way of hiring, actually. We pride ourselves on having a really good network of candidates, and like I said, when it kind of came around sort of March, April time, we got a lot of phone calls from people that found themselves in a position that they never expected to be in. So, I just kind of thought, well, what's the best way that we can actually go about helping these people? We can sit there and say, look, I'll give you a call when something comes up, or you try and do something that the clients need and that candidates need. And I just kind of felt like the interim process of hiring was right. And like I said, we've seen good uptake on it. We've been able to help several individuals that have kind of been on the market for over a month, which is something I'm not used to. So, that's one way of doing it. The reality is like you say, there are companies out there hiring. As a recruiter, you've got to adapt to the environment. Same with everybody else. Everybody's trying to do it. I am speaking to more companies who are sort of saying, well, look, we feel like we can just attract our own talent at the moment, which kind of makes sense. There's a lot of people out there on the market, but again, then that throws up, potential issues. I think where you have these people on the market, it's a little bit of a false economy, because where these people come available, where usually they would always be in full-time employment in this really specialized industry that we all live in, companies are kind of able to get their hands on candidates where usually they wouldn't be able to, or those kind of candidates wouldn't be applying. I'm obviously going to say this as a recruiter, but there's obviously a risk with that, in that those individuals, with the market as it is right now, of course they're going to take some of those jobs, because obviously people have mortgages and they have bills and whatever else. Of course they're going to they're going to take those people on. My advice to any company that's doing that would be to make sure that you really drill down on the due diligence on the candidates that you're looking at, because of course that's something that we do as a recruitment company. We do it with every candidate that we bring into a process to make sure that, you know, everyone that we present to a company is capable of doing that role. But not only that, they have the right kind of culture fit, the value system fit, all those bits that you do as a recruitment company, because you have the time to do it, because that's your MO. You know, we do that as standard. So I would say to companies that are looking to, you know, cut recruitment companies out, and I can see why people would do it, but I would also say that if you're going to do it, make sure that you really drill down on that due diligence, because when the market starts to eventually come back round, you know, and those companies that were laying off then start to hire again, and then maybe looking to rehire people that they might have laid off. You know, companies might find themselves in a similar situation in 12 months where they feel like they've got somebody for that role, but actually what you've got there is you've kind of got the short-term fix.
Yeah, very
you know,
important.
so that's one of the reasons why we're pushing interim, because, you know, I think where you can foresee that scenario, and kind of paint the picture to companies, look, this person can come in and do some work for you, whether it's 9 months, 12 months, 6 months, whatever, or however long you need that person. I think where you kind of prepare companies for that eventuality, when it eventually comes around, then there's less of that kind of shock thing. Whereas if you go into it thinking, look, we've brought this person on, amazing, we would never usually been able to get somebody like that. I think when it comes around and eventually the virus starts to dissipate, whenever that might be, you know, the market's going to be a funny place again, and you know, those people that have had to take roles, you know, to cover their costs, essentially, I think companies are going to find themselves in a situation where they might be, you know, heading back out to the market to maybe hire again. So I just say to companies, just make sure that you're doing all that work to make sure that people
are going to stay in the position that they're looking for. That's obviously very important. You know, it could be
it's really complex at the moment.
It is complex. I could see how some people could be taking, and a lot of people that are going things to take a job just for the interim right now. And
you have to.
You know, yeah, that's not good for the company or the person being hired, really, in the long run. You know, it's a lot of jumping around and a lot of investment into a person to make those changes. So very important to prepare. Yeah,
that's the key bit. It's the investment into that person, because of course, you know, 12 months is where the majority of the investment comes when you bring somebody into the business. And of course, if people are leaving in 12 months, and then you've got to do that again, that can become quite expensive,
costly, and time takes a lot of time and cost. That's for sure. Yeah,
and it probably works out a lot more expensive than working with a recruiter to find you somebody that's going to stay for, you know, 3, 4, 5
well
years.
Yeah, I think it's also working with the right recruiter. I know someone like you who obviously cares about those type of things and does the work to make sure that they're fitting the right person. You know, there's not every recruiting agency out there that does that. So there's there's the bad recruiters that give it a bad name, and then there's ones like you that are actually doing that work. So thank you for doing that. You know, it's a lot of that helps the customer being the next employee that goes in there. You know,
for sure.
So yeah, that's awesome. So I mean, that's great. You talked about a little bit about the opportunities, but what about you? You know, what are the future goals you have for Additae going forward?
Well. It's survival. No, I mean, put it this way. I think, you know, the interesting thing about this time, and you'll know it, and I think everybody knows it, you know, this, for whatever it's been, 6, 7 months, this is a period in our life where everybody's had a bit of time to reflect on, you know, everything really, not just what you do for a job, but, you know, people are spending more time with their kids. People are considering, you know, where am I trying to get to? You know, what am I doing professionally right now? But where's that taking me? You know, and I think, you know, and even the whole concept of being able to do your job at home rather than the office, and then people thinking about, you know, commute times and the amount of time that people spend traveling from one place of work to home every single day, especially in the US.
Yeah.
I think it's making people see things a lot differently. From my side, looking at Additae, I mean, I always saw us as a search firm, and we'd always just focus on permanent recruitment. But, you know, now we're doing interim placements. That's something I'd always considered, but never kind of really had the impetus to roll it out, because realistically there was no need for us to do it. We were doing, well on the permanent side, but now here we are. But also from an expansion perspective, we started off as two, but now I've been one for a while, but I've kind of been working behind the scenes with somebody else. So there's the potential for expansion, which is something that I wasn't really thinking about back in March. So that's kind of exciting, but also from a sector industry perspective. So we've been 100% focused on additive. We're now looking at other areas of the IoT. Looking at we're doing software now. I never thought we'd be involved with software. Most of what we were doing was kind of process applications, materials, and design. But so we even had a software retainer role earlier in the summer. So from our side, it's really a case of saying, well, what else could we be doing? I think where you start to talk to so many companies about, what is it that you need? We're probably asking the kind of questions right now that we've never asked before. It's been more about what are your kind of growth plans? Because everybody was, once you start talking about one role, you want to know about the whole picture. Whereas over the last few months, you're talking more about, well, what are your problems? What are the things that you're struggling with, and what problems do you foresee for the next 6, 12, 18 months? And so I think when you do that, you start to empathize more, and then it kind of allows you to think more about what it is you're actually providing for the industry, other than just saying, we've got a load of AM, engineers, candidates, manufacturing specialists. It's more about asking companies, well, look, what kind of people do you need now? Where do you see the kind of the growth and development in the next 12 months? I mean, software is huge, obviously, because there's the working from home element. If you look at even the progression of the industry, where it was going anyway. But even looking into different parts of the kind of the supply chain and the AM value chain, looking at companies that are looking to bring people in to implement additive manufacturing, rather than, whereas we've usually worked with companies who are already rolling out additive. Now a lot of companies are looking to bring people in that, where they haven't necessarily been doing it before. Or of course, on the AM side, companies that are looking to actually go into full scale production now, of course, that it's been so R&D focused sort of over the last 4 or 5 years. I think now, we'd seen it even prior to COVID, where companies are looking at, people from aerospace or automotive or medical with a bit of AM added on, rather than the kind of full scale AM type candidates. So we'd even seen that sort of last year, 2019. And I think when the thing starts to come around, I think that's another trend that we'll all start to see, is that companies are going to start, genuinely trying to roll out, how do we, put this out on sort of full scale production. So, trying to summarize it. As well as I did, to be honest. I mean, you have so many conversations, your mind goes in so many different directions, to be honest. So I think we're just trying to serve the industry the best way that we can, to be honest. So that's probably the best summary of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it is. I know that a good summary I see is right here on your webpage, and that webpage is Additae.global, and right away you say make things better. So thanks for doing that. That's really what you're doing. So I appreciate that.
It's funny that we I remember we came up with that. I think we'd only been out on our own for about a month, and we were just kind of saying we need something. We can't just use this funny Latin word where no one really knows what it means.
Sure.
You need something else, and I was trying to, it's one of those where you're trying to think of something, clever and simple. And then of course, the more you think about it, and the more clever it can be, the harder it gets. And then you've got this 15-word slogan, and you're like, what is it we're actually trying to do? And, I just said, well, we're just trying to make things better, aren't we? And then it just stuck. And then it kind of, because you have that double meaning on, that relates specifically to additive manufacturing, making things better. We just went with that, and then we stick it on hashtags and what have you, and try and make it a thing. So it's it just came out of that little process, realistically.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about making things better. I know you started your own podcast too, and how's that been going for you?
Well, slightly less momentum than yours, obviously.
No, that's all good.
I mean, put it this way, it's one of those where, when you're in that sort of downtime and you're like, well, what else can I be doing? So I thought, well, let's get out there. I've been thinking about, doing some video. I'd never really done much of it before. And I thought, well, I got a message from the guys at Authentize, and a friend of mine, Andre Wagner, and he said to me, oh, we're going to do some video, and they asked for volunteers, and your name was the first that came up, and I was like,
busted, yeah.
Now I'm in it, and now you can't go back now. So I did it with them, and I think that kind of took away the nerves a little bit. And then it's only been a few. I did one with the guys at Speed, Byron and Stefan at Speed 3D.
Okay. Cool.
And then I did one with Nora Torre from obviously the founder of Women in 3D Printing, and that was
wonderful.
Oh man, blew my mind a little bit. Really.
Yeah, well, I actually watched that one. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have 2 daughters, and it's pretty close to my heart, that one. When you kind of think about how things are going to be for them kind of down the track, talking to Nora was, really inspirational, actually. So I need to get my focus back. So we did put it this way, we did the first 2, and then I picked up these 2 retainers, and then kind of had to get back to some actual recruitment.
Yeah.
So I took a bit of a hiatus, but I'm just trying to line up a couple more now, actually. And the thing is, the problem is, now that you're doing so many, what I'm trying to do is interview people that you're not interviewing.
Oh no. Yeah.
Follow and Greg did it, and because Adam did it, but no. So I'm trying to find people that are just on my thing, but it's getting harder by the day now, because you kind of taking you're taking all the.
I'll slow down, I guess, man. I'll let there's a lot of video podcasts and audio podcasts I see, and everybody's kind of making the rounds and doing things, but you get a different conversation. And what I've also learned on my side is, I do pay attention to the other interviews, and I say, now what can I maybe make different in this interview? Maybe ask some different questions and things like that, because even in an hour of time isn't an individual's whole scope of what they can talk about. So there's so many things to focus on. So I just try not to repeat. And sometimes you cross over things because it's just a matter of what's happening at that time. But I've noticed that myself. But I'm like, I've even seen people put things out a day before me because I've announced that I'm putting somebody out. And I'm like, oh boy. Okay. Now I'm like, maybe I can't announce who's coming up next, because they'll try to put one out before me, but it's funny. Yeah. It's like, what are you going to do? There's
stealth is a decent tactic in that instance, I think.
Yeah. Someone was pushing me not to go stealth and to advertise a little more. And when I started noticing people like trying to circumvent going first. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Yeah. But hey, it's good, right? It's like all the late night talk shows,
Exactly, right?
Everybody jumps from show to show at the same time because of whatever's out in the current marketplace. So it kind of makes sense. Each individual has a different way of interviewing. So I think it shows up in the conversations that people are having. I say, everybody get into it. Everybody do it. Why not? This is our virtual world that we have. We might as well jump into it. So
it's nerve wracking until you do it. And on the first one, I was still like, well, I was on the second one, and I am now, actually.
It never stops. It never stops. Yeah.
You think you got it, but it's always a little bit scary, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. Well, I know another quote I have that I took off of your LinkedIn page is, "You must unlearn what you have learned," and that is from the the all-powerful Yoda, correct? And that's a good slogan for right now. We're all going through that.
Well, put it this way, you've kind of really unveiled my geekdom there.
It's awesome.
All right, I think everybody in the industry that I speak to knows about it, because I always try and steer the conversation to Star Wars, away from additive to Star Wars. It's just a more comfortable place for me. But yeah, put it this way, with additive, I was a bit like, going back to that first role, and they were kind of walking me through what it meant, and I was like, what? And then somebody showed me, that was it. Somebody was trying to explain it to me, and then somebody said to me, just get that thing from Terminator 2. And I was like, what do you mean? I saw that film back in, 91 or something like that. But then, actually, when you're trying to explain something engineering-y to a layman,
Sure.
sometimes a good film reference is what you need. And actually, I watched that and I thought, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah, unlearning what you've learned. I mean, put it this way: with Additive, it was more about the way that we were doing recruiting. So, you know, we had a way of just, we had processes that we roll out in sort of traditional manufacturing recruitment stuff. When it came to Additive, it was, I mean, you know, trying to find people in this industry, you know, from a position of nothing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that was really complicated actually. And I just kind of went at it. And like I say, I put myself out there and tried to find people that would help, and tried to find people that would direct me. Like I say, there were 3 or 4 people at the start who were hugely helpful. But to be honest, without that, I don't know, without that kind of process, you know, if I'd have just used the processes that we'd been using at the time, we'd have got nowhere, you know. So it was almost like when you're trying to explain to people how you recruit in this industry, you basically got to start from, in my experience, kind of had to start from scratch, go with your instinct, you know, find as many helpful people as you can, listen to what they're saying, and then just try and create a process out of that, really. So it was kind of double-edged. Obviously, it's related to, you know, all things additive, but it also applied to kind of our business and how we go about finding people for companies in this industry.
Yeah, well, I think you're right on top of it with the one thing that you said in there, which is the most important part, is you listen to the individual. You know, you listen to the individual and what they're doing, and that's where you are unlearning the last individual you spoke with. You know,
for
so
sure.
yeah.
And every scenario is completely unique. You know, every company's, even you know, with job titles that would be the same for company X. You know, if you're looking for a, you know, head of applications for this company versus a head of applications for this company, you can't just say, well, look, have these candidates, we've just done that, because it can be a completely different you know, set of responsibilities. So yeah, it varies so wildly.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Finding the right person for the right situation takes listening, learning that individual, and not just saying, oh, I know how this goes. I just hired someone over here. It's the same thing. I'll just pop them in over here. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be great if everybody worked like that. Just pop and play everywhere you go. Hey, you're fine. Just stick you over here. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. All right.
I could scale my company a lot easier if that.
Everybody could do it, right? And not everybody can. So yeah. Well, that's a special talent. It's really great to talk to you, Greg, and thanks for taking the time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share while we have you here?
Well, I mean, look, I'm looking forward to that time where everybody can all meet up properly. I'm kind of looking forward to, you know, Formnext next month. Want to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Last year was just, it was so big. I'm interested to see, you know, obviously we've all been involved in online webinars over the last 7 months, but I think with Formnext, you know, everybody's looking at that as like, well, it'd just be nice to do some networking. You know, the industry and engineering chat is great, but the thing I love about Formnext and RAPID is the networking. You know, so it'd be nice to see how you build in kind of virtual happy hours and all that kind of business. And you know, because that's where the real gold is. It's not necessarily in the halls, but I've always found it's the part afterwards where everybody kind of, you know, has a drink and lets their guard down, and that's where, to be fair, in my experience, that's where we've always got our gold. So hopefully it'll be something similar this year, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to just seeing some familiar faces, really.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Well, it's been wonderful having you here. Thanks again for stopping by, Greg, and we look forward to seeing everything you do in the future. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
Stay safe. Thanks, Adam.